Welcome back, everybody. In our last lesson, what we did was create our basic snake game, and we created just one snake segment. Basically, we used a table, and in our last episode, we set up our game and drew the snake on the screen. Today, we're going to make it move and add arrow key controls so we can actually play. So first, our snake needs to know which way it's moving. So what we are going to do is to create new variables. But before we do that, let's save our lesson as 02 underscore movement, like that. So now we've saved our game as 02 underscore movement. Let's use CLS to clear the screen and use escape to go back. So what we're going to do is to create variables for our direction, and we're going to handle inputs in the appropriate sections we've created for handling input. So just after our init snake method, so let's look for our init snake. It's just right here. And just before the end, what I'm going to do is just add new variables. And these are going to be placeholders to tell us which direction the snake is facing. So first, I'm going to say dir underscore x. I'm going to set that to 1. And this is going to be for right movement. And we'll just do our direction y. So this is our dir y underscore y. And this is for our up and down movement. So let's just say up and down movement. And also we'll need a timer because the timer is going to determine how fast the game is running. So to do that, I'm just going to say move underscore timer. We'll set that to 0. And then we want to control our snake speed. So let's create a delay. So I'm going to call that move underscore delay. And let's set this to 0.15. So with these two variables added, I'll quickly just hit Control S to save the game. And let's go to our handle input function. So right here, just after the init snake, let's create a new function under. And I'll just say handle input. This just tells me this is the section of my code that's doing this and that. So I'll create a function and I'll call that handle underscore input to handle inputs, and I'll create v and e and d to end that. So we have a handle inputs function and we have our end. I'll just hit the return key just to give a little bit of space here to see how we're doing. And also another thing is if you hit Alt Enter, you would actually have PICO-8 in full screen, but I don't really like the resolution. So you can hit Alt Enter again. Another thing you can do is you can always, increase the size like that, but that's just by the way. So what we want to do is to say if our button 0 is actually the left key, and our direction, so our direction underscore x is 0. It means if we're not moving and we've pressed the left key, then what do we want to do? Well, we want to change our direction to -1. It means we are moving left. Direction underscore x is going to be equal to -1. All right. So let's do the same thing for moving right. And I'm also going to set the downward key to 0 so we are not moving in the y direction. So I'm just going to say direction underscore y, and I'll set that to 0. So next, we're going to use an else if. That means we're continuing with our script. If we're pressing button 1, now this is the right arrow key, and direction underscore x is the same thing as 0, then what we want to do if we are pressing the right arrow key and our direction is 0, so we want to set our direction underscore x to be equal to 1. It means we're moving right, and our direction underscore y is going to be equal to 0. So let's do an else if our button, so if we're pressing the down key now, and I notice a slight error here, it's supposed to be and once you have the right keyword, it's going to turn pink. That's PICO-8's built-in keywords are usually pink if you're using the X editor. So if we're pressing the button 2 and our direction underscore y is equal to 0, then we now want to move up. Now moving up is going to be negative. So first I'll just say direction underscore x is going to be equal to 0, and our direction underscore y is going to be equal to -1. Why are we using -1 since we're going up? Well, PICO-8's coordinate is at 0, 0 at the top left. So going down is positive and going back up is negative. So that's why direction underscore y is negative if we're pressing the up key. And let's go and say else if button 3 is now the down key, and our direction underscore y is equal to 0. So if we press the down button and our direction y is 0, then just make sure this is clearly written. Then what do we want to happen? Well, we're going to set our direction underscore x to be equal to 0 to make sure we're not moving horizontally, or else we're going to destroy the player. And our direction underscore y is now equals 1. Now we are setting the direction. We're not moving the player yet, just a direction set. So let's end all these else if statements by ending everything here. So this is our beginning if, and this is our end if, and then we have some space here. This is our end for our handle input function. And you can see I like tabbing this out. It keeps it very readable and understandable. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and update our snake. We already have an update snake, function, but we don't have any option, any movement here. So first, let's set the frame rate for our move timer. So I'm just going to say move underscore timer is going to be equal to plus equals 1 divided by 30. Let me explain why I'm doing this, because each update in our function, in our draw or our update function, each game loop is going to be running at 30 frames per second. So one frame is going to be 1/30th of that second. So if we divide 1/30 times 60 or 30 frames, it'll just give us the amount here. If I bring up my calculator and I say 1 divided by 30, it will give me a fractional value like 0.033. Multiply that by 60 seconds, we're going to get, 2 like that. So that's just something to keep by the side. So 0.0333 by 30 is going to give us 0.9. That's almost like, 10. So that's just what that's doing there. We're just making sure that we're setting the appropriate frame rate for our timer. So next, we're going to check if our move timer is less than our move delay, which is less than 0.15, then we're going to exit and reset our move timer. So I'm going to say if our move underscore timer is less than our move underscore delay, so then we're going to use a return. So basically it means exit out of this function, disable that function from working, and we're going to set our move underscore timer to be equal to 0. So basically this move timer is going to start counting when the game is running this function update snake in the update method, because if we look at our update method over here, we have update snake. So update snake is going to be checking every frame. If move timer is now less than this amount, then what it's going to do is to reset this back to 0. Now let's go ahead and create the head for our snake. So I'll just hit the return key and just move over here, and let's create a local variable. A local variable will only be available in the function that is it's created. So if I create a local, let's say our snake, the head of our snake, and remember we have a snake already, so I'm just going to say snake, and the first element in our snake, we're going to use the array to call that snake 0. So that's going to be the first element here. So I'm just going to say local, and I'll say, let's say new head. So for our next set of snake heads, it's going to be equal to, and I'll create a table here, and I'll say X is going to be equal to head dot X plus the direction. So that's where that direction is coming, direction underscore X, and then comma for our Y, we're going to say our head dot Y plus our direction underscore Y. And let's go ahead and close this function here. So next, now that we've created the head, what we need to do is to add that into our list. So I'm going to use the keyword add, and here we're going to add the snake object, and then we're going to add the new underscore head, and then we're going to add it at the front position. So this is what this is doing. Let's just call this front, like so. And then we're going to remove the tail. So we're going to use the delete. Because this is a list, we can add things to it. So I'm going to call that snake. Be very wary of my spelling because there's no, it's not Visual Studio Code. If I make an error, it's not going to work. And then we're going to remove the tail. So I'll use the number symbol, and then I'll just say snake here, like so. And let's go ahead and close this index. And since this is a delete function, we need to close this as well. So function, call brace, and then our snake here, like that. So let's go ahead and save this. So now we need to draw our snake, which we've actually already done. So let's do a quick recap of what we actually do here. So let me start with the button. So basically our button here is going to return true when a key is held down. So if we press a key, our button is going to tell us, hey, we actually are pressing a key from our keyboard. Next, we actually used the add over here, and adds, we said add snake, we're adding the head section. This inserts in a head in front of our list, and then delete is going to remove at the last section. And then basically our move timer and move delay, here in our update move timer and move delay. Basically what these are going to do is to make our movement frame rate independent. Otherwise our snake will be moving too fast. So let's go ahead and save that and hit Control R, and we have a problem, and I can clearly see where that problem is. I don't know why I spelled this like that. That is terrible, 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 terrible. So let's see where that that error is coming from. Sorry, I'll just run that again. So at line 67, where we have y equals, so at line 67, this is not good. And I'm pretty sure you must have caught up to this. And I just complained that I should be spelling everything correctly. So let's save that and run this. So now we have parts of the snake actually moving. Either way, snake games automatically start running when you start playing the game. So yeah. All right, let's save that and make sure we're finally doing everything. It's nice. So yeah, so just make sure you double check or triple check these directions, or else they'll make or break your game. So sorry for dragging this for so long. So let's save our game, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Peace.